Oh, what up, people? This is your boy Juro. It is Sunday, the 18th of September, 2021. How is everybody doing? So I'm out here in the garage, got the TV, sipping on my morning coffee. And you know me, I'm always in introspection. I'm always reflecting. First and foremost, I hope you're well. Wherever you are in the town near you, city near you, state near you, worldwide, I hope you are well. And, you know, looking at social media, a lot of hot button topics in regards to the dynamic of relationships and why there's a conflict in relationships from a male and female perspective. And, you know, I've always had the mindset of you could always learn something different. Each one teach one. That's what it's all about, right? But since even with my channel, set mine up 2011, October 2011. First video I ever did was, when was the last time you told you love you? And that was the day I made a commitment to embrace my journey of what happiness was. And I saw how important what was required. And I look nearly a decade later, and I look at the state of where we are as a community, regardless of the demographics, but even deeper when it comes to the individual aspects. And I still cannot ignore the question about relationships in regards to you. You know, there's so much strife in companionship these days. You know, you have those that will say, well, you have to have this to check the boxes, and you must have that to check the boxes. And it seems like that's all good and well, but we always tend to go to only a certain level. We don't, like an onion. I used to use the example of an onion. You know, until we're willing to peel back the layers of what makes our identity, the values, the things that matter most, that define not only our actions, but resonates for our character of self. You know, you've always heard from religious doctrine, be true to thyself. So how can we be true to thyself if we don't know who we are? Now, with that being said, how can you have expectations for what you envision as what your relationship will look like if you don't have a relationship with yourself? Why is it that today's communities, they don't want to do that? It's like the social aspect is like a microwave meal. You know, you can grab what is being offered. There's different types of variations of whatever that meal may be. You make the selection, you decide that you are going to eat that. But if you don't read the directions or invest in what's required, the outcome is never as you'd like, such as taking it out of the box, throwing it in the microwave, putting up the amount of time, the requirement. How many times have you done that and you could smell the aroma of said entree only to realize it's cold and you're frustrated, or the opposite, it's burnt, it's been scorched, and it's undesirable. Why? Why is that? Did we miss the small print? Did we overlook the nuances, proverbially known as your red flags? What was it that we failed to do? Because until we decide to look at it from that perspective, you'll always get it wrong. You'll always fall short. You'll always miss the mark. Why? Because that's what detail requires. Now, we could easily say, well, I don't have enough time. My patience is thin. Or you were distracted. But you still got to take ownership in that. You still have to have accountability on that. Why? Because the greatest resources that is being given at that time and whatever endeavor that you decide to pursue requires awareness. You must acknowledge where you put yourself. That means you must be able to critically think before you act. But if you're looking through a perspective where it's not based off of an emotional analytics instead of logic, you'll miss the mark each and every time. Who am I talking to? Are you getting tired of being tired? Because no matter the environment, the outcome is always the same. Even if you try to be methodical in your practice and you say, well, I'm going to use wit, I'm going to make sure that a certain outcome is resulted, but you still fall short, that's why cheaters never win. Because what's at stake is you. YOU. So, with that being said, how can you have a grievance on what your relationship health looks like if you're not willing to invest in it? But more importantly, how can you expect a different outcome if you refuse to acknowledge what's present? See, that's a big thing that a lot of people, for some odd reason, they put more emphasis in their ego instead of their integrity. And they wonder why the outcome does not change. The faces change. The scenarios may alter no matter how much time has been put in or left out. The outcome is still the same. You are emotionally holding the bag. Why? Because there is no cheat code when it comes to your happiness. Who am I talking to? You say, well, if I want to proverbially win, I've got to go do it this way because that's what works for them. Sometimes from a spiritual standpoint, you will have access to certain examples that will play out so that you can gain the wisdom of the experience without having to endure it. Who am I talking to? How many times have you turned around and you said, you know what? Man, that's messed up. If that was me, I would do this. That was a blessing for you to learn so you didn't have to experience. Who am I talking to? So, how can you take a standpoint where it is very easy to complain or critique if you do not acknowledge? How can you? It's contradiction when you think about it. You know, I get it. We live in a world where we want what we want. But out of the things that we want, how much of a percentage is really based off of what you need? And here's the irony of it. You have this, you go through this mental battle every time this scenario plays out. They don't get me. They don't understand. Why are they being so hard? Why won't they be on the same page as me? Why am I experiencing said such a what situation? I used to always convey in my videos in the past. Sometimes when you decide to embrace who you really are and whatever said examples are played out, you might think you're losing today, but you'll realize you'll be winning later on in life. Okay, what I mean by that? Think of it this way. Would you rather have everything you want, or would you rather have the things you need? Because if you get everything that you want, guess what? You know what you're not going to get? Peace of mind. Self-respect. Understanding of self. And value of access to you. Who's that for? That is why you will also look at, you cannot ignore whatever your state of mind is at this point, your reality reflects it. Who am I talking to? That's why people are, when it comes to change, first of all, when it comes to betterment of self, you don't need nobody's permission to be the best you. You need to have the courage to take that first step. And here's the disparaging part of that. The people that have access to your life right now, if they genuinely loved you, they're going to support you. Even if that means at risk of not having access to you. Why? Because they want you to win. They're not going to proverbially talk you off that ledge, stand in your way, be a rock in your proverbial stream. They're not going to do that. Why? But you know why a lot of them do? Because they knew that from the first hello when they met you. They knew that. They saw that in you from the first hello, and they knew if you had a remote clue of being able to tap into who you really are without being afraid of being who you are, they know that there's a possibility y'all got nothing to talk about. That's why misery loves company, fam. That's why I always would say misery is compared to like an endless table with endless chairs, hoping that you would sit down, because the moment you decide to sit down, life is not in your control. It's delayed. Think about everything that you wanted to do, you finally made the commitment to act upon, and you decided to share that. Do you remember the reaction you got? Tell the truth. You remember the reaction you got? And sometimes you might not even got an answer, but you saw it in behavior. You might have heard it in soft-hearted comments. Now these are people that got access to you. But what you're really seeing it being exhibited is they're deflecting the fear onto you because they see an aspect of them that they have yet to master. Who am I talking to? Oh, you want to go ahead and change up your diet and start exercising. You don't have time to go hang out with us anymore because you're always in the gym. Or you've allowed yourself time to focus on that, maybe that gift or hobby that you do that brings you joy. Who do you think you are? Really? These your friends. These your friends. Oh, here you go. Why are you acting like that? You acting like them. Now, mind you, if they had the ability to do that themselves, why haven't they exempted? Why haven't they shown that in their behavior? Why? This ain't shade. This is acknowledgement. And that is why you may have some long standing, uh, what you thought was friendships that have maybe over a decade, but yet you would give up all that loyalty for one conversation that had truth in it. Who am I talking to? Now, what you're seeing is a lot of it is 85% of it is fear. 20% of it is envy. That is why, if there's something that has been long standing emotionally and you just want clarity, but you never get it, you get more pushback than you do in the situation. You don't understand, like, they supposed to be your A spoon coon. They supposed to have your best, but they don't live that in their own example. Because you do know, and people say this so loosely, that word friend. The word friend is earned, but we live in a world where we give it with precursors and uh, certain expectations instead of allowing ourselves to assess. It's okay to have associates, family. It's okay to have a commonality. But do you really, really know them? Do they really, really know you? That's the question you should ask. Because if you can't peel off the mask, whose reality are you playing? So, let me get off that caveat. So, how can we in 2021 make demands on what the dynamic of a relationship is if you don't have one? If you don't invest, the greatest relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. You realize how many people supplement what they think the dynamic of happiness is by temporary expectations? Think about it. That's why I've always said, and I will continue to say, anything that's meant for you to have, there will not be any force in it. It will come freely. That's why that proverbial saying that you heard long ago, when one door closes, a window opens. Even in disappointment. Why? The window represents opportunity for you to reflect. The opportunity for you to allow yourself to be truly, unapologetically authentic. But we have so many distractions on this in our lives, don't we? We let this one and that one to come and go, say what they want, ask what they want, and expect for us to deliver. Why? Why? Now, with that being said, you may be in a dynamic where you're saying, well, Gerald, I hear you. I'm truly doing the work. But it's still, I shouldn't feel like I'm pulling teeth just just to be a part of this. The sad reality of that is this. You've always had the key to unlock what you need. To unlock that means you need to you truth. And unfortunately, sometimes truth hurts. But the one thing about truth that cannot be denied, what's connected to that, is freedom. It's freedom. Always will be, always shall be. That is why even in spiritual doctrine, Most High, truth will set you free. You've always had the ability to possess that. So why haven't you? Sometimes you got to get out of others' way to see the road that you should have been on all along. Now, I will say some of that will require trust. Trust to embrace the unknown. So, as I was saying, nowadays, what's at an all-time high is you have a lot of people that are trying to navigate life emotionally and not with logic. And the sad thing about that is there's no accountability there. You can't expect things to change if you do not understand not only where you are at the moment, but where you've been. Let that sink in. It's funny because when you allow social media, just media in general, I mean, you look at your generations past, they didn't have social media. They had magazines, they had periodicals, they had novels, and they all had certain narratives and ideologies that were infused in there to stimulate thought, but more or less to render a certain outcome. This was strategically done. So let's turn the page. What is it going to take for you to feel comfortable to smile again? I ask that because you're looking at a person for almost damn near 20 years. I didn't smile. I lost my smile. I thought that my perspective was from a realist perspective, especially, depending on where you are. I was raised very nomadically, but for a big chunk of my later development, I lived in D.C. D.C.'s home, one of the many places I called home. And living in the inner city, the one thing that was always instilled is you don't walk around like Johnny Happy because somebody will catch you slipping, try to rob you, bring harm to you. And that's just what it was. So it was very common that people would be straight faced, eyes on a swivel, get you what you got to do and get the hell home. That was just what it was. So, with that being said, that influence has also been absorbed across the board. You got a lot of people walking around that want happiness so bad, but they don't know how to allow themselves to get to it. They want their environment to be supportive, but they're afraid to have the conversation with the people that are in it. And the question should be asked, why? So now let's fast forward 15 years ago. Think back 15 years ago. Back then, there was still a simplicity of the relationship dynamic. Yes, there were problems. Yes, there were options. But even the things that were considered options were mocked and looked upon. Oh, you can't do that. You will come off weak. And I'll give you a good example. 15 years ago, you still had crooners. That's when R&B was at its paramount. You had artists like Babyface and Luther Vandross and Freddie Jackson, and the list can go on and on. Will Downings, and R&B still is prevalent. The funny thing about urban music, the biggest support that you'll ever find for urban music, our culture, is overseas. Just like hip hop. Hip hop is more supportive overseas. They still got people in Europe, in Japan, in France, in Sweden having hip hop breakdance competitions, big competitions. They embrace the culture, they know what it is, but they might not look like you or me. So let's not sway. So now the narrative is, to get what I want, I have to do, no. I got to use what I got to get what I want. But at what cost? Your self-respect, your dignity. Because this is not shade, but think about it this way. You look at the physical appearance today. There is a microcosm percentage of women that have said, well, you know what? I've gotten to a point where I realize I have to take accountability for myself. I'm willing to turn every stone in my life so that it will secure happiness, even if it means by myself. Well, that's fine and dandy and all. So with the advancement of technology, so you had more access to people worldwide. The narrative then became more perverse. And you have folks saying, well, look here, to get Johnny Neckbone, you have to use what you bring to the table, which was your physicality, not your character, not your brain. And what the image of beauty was determined was compromised and compared to the lady that works the night, the streetwalker. To the point of, so to be blunt, they watered it down to convince you that your natural femininity had to be marginalized to the lady that swings on the pole, to the lady that walks the block. And that is why there's so many companies making money hands over fist, because, no, don't get me wrong, you can wear whatever you want. But what you don't have control of is the perspective, or how can I say this? You have no control of what a person may perceive. No one has control of that. You could be, I was going to say that, and I can't even use that. That wouldn't make any sense. You could be the best person, but if physically I see you dress a certain way, the first thing I'm going to look at, I've got to acknowledge is what's your mindset, because we all know, especially men know, the last thing that a woman will do, she's going to look in that mirror before she steps into the world. She's going to do that. So that means it was a willful choice of how she's going to be perceived. This is something that a lot of women do not like. They don't like to acknowledge that. No, you can't judge me because, I'm wearing this outfit and my cleavage is out. My cakes are shown. When actuality, what you're trying to say is, I'm proud of my body, excuse me, and this outfit is supposed to accentuate that. That's just like looking for a job on, as soon as you walk in the door. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And it's sad because when you base that from the mindset of a man, and I say that loosely, the first thing he's gonna acknowledge is, how does she accompany me? Because she is a representation of me. If she's not carrying herself as a lady should, how do I expect she's going to carry herself alongside me? So while you hear other folks talk about this from the relationship perspective, they will easily say, well, in summation, heal your wounds first. Heal your wounds first before you decide to invest in your future. How can you not know where you're going or understand where you're going if you don't understand where you are now and what you've gone through? Let that sink in. You will never have the result you're looking for until you're willing to not only reconnect to that little boy inside you, until you get back to them, give them what they need, you, because the seasons come and go doesn't mean that that little boy, little girl inside you has died. No matter what you've gone through, no matter what you've had to endure, if anything, that little girl's still sitting on that swing, eyes filled with tears, still wondering, when are you going to come back to me? When are you going to make me feel safe again? But if you allow your girlfriends tell it, they'll tell you, nah, suck it up, it comes with it. Why? They ain't did the work. They don't want you to do the work. And whatever disappointments they've gone through, they own it. They look at it as a badge of honor when it should have never been. There's no honor in pain. There's nothing but there's honor in being authentic. Because guess what? No matter what you go through, what you've been through, what you may possibly have to endure, will not have no measurement until you acknowledge you were there. How can someone have an effect on you if you can't relate to what they're saying? How can you relate to what someone's saying if you will not acknowledge what you've experienced? That's why there's unfortunately a lot of people by themselves today. That's why they're deep down inside, family, they're afraid of commitment. They're afraid of relationships because it requires work. It requires trust. It requires you to be authentic with yourself. We are all work in progress. But if you're committed to that work, no matter how long, you will be. See, look at it this way. The person that you envision in your spirit is waiting on you on the other side of that. How about that? The person that you can be is already there. They're just waiting for you to commit to it. Now that price may be you got to cut everybody out your damn life. Respectfully. Or sometimes it may require you just to be quiet and observe what's going on in your environment. It's not about having the exclamation point in every event in your life. Or better yet, stop lying to yourself. Stop stop embracing trying to live a life that ain't yours. Can I pull the filters off real quick? It doesn't matter what your sex game is about, what you can do. It doesn't. Because if there's no peace in mind connect to that, it's worthless. How many times have you been out and about and you see somebody, see a couple, and you say, what does he see in her? Now, for the shallow perspective, they may say, he's with her because she looks a certain way. Or flip, she's with him because what he has. But just what if? The perspective is that person is a reflection of what his happiness looks like. That person, without a shadow of a doubt, they can be vulnerable. That person is the image of what love looks like. Who am I talking to? That is why your friends may have a turnstile of contacts that they can pick up on their phone and say, I'm going to call Charlie. I know that Charlie can scratch my itch. He's good for that. But I can call Saul over there because he's a good listener. Or I'll call Peter over there because he is financially responsible. Meanwhile, you having all these men that just want to have sex with you, just to add a notch on the belt, or worse, have certain types of fetishes that they want to use you in, but have no intentions on committing to you. It's no different than going to the library, checking a book out, forgetting that it's overdue. You deserve better than that. But if you're playing prostitute games, how you expect to have a happy ever after? That ain't nothing but a train wreck waiting to happen. That's called discord. Now, King, this is to you. Stop settling. Fall back. Go in your emotional backpack and pull out all the bullshit that you have not completed and start working on that. Start working on that. That doesn't give you the right to be disrespectful in your environment. If anything, it will build reassurance and confidence because you are actually showing courage to embrace your dignity. See, social media want to tell you that because you got something in your pocket that folds, or you know, yeah, you, yeah, Yeah, that's all you need. But that's temporary. That's no different than having an additional spare tire on your vehicle. You know, everybody has a spare, but some people, depending on the investment, they're proactive and they've got a backup to the backup. But guess what? The ride will never be smooth. And granted, we're playing, there, people are playing emotional chess. You go left, I'm going to go right. I'm going to move this way, and you're going to stand still, but eventually our paths are going to cross because they're trying to be methodical, but yet they're not in, but yet they refuse to look at the step that should have been right in front of them the whole time. So what happens? You get resentment. You are frustrated. You have taken a position where they don't understand me, so they ain't shit. And you want to disrespect our women. Let me tell you something. That's sitting in the cheap seats. But guess what? A person can't do nothing to you if they don't have access to you. So who's at fault? What was wagered? What was not spoken on? So and that's the problem because you got a lot of people, they don't and won't do the work, but they want the reward. And I'm here to tell you, there are some people that have been afforded to come into your life from a loving place, and they have told you as respectfully as they could. And what'd you do? You blew them off. They tried to extend the olive branch, and you broke it. You say, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, how I want to do it. But at the end of the day, you're alone. I got a feeling right now somebody is saying, he's talking about you. Or somebody is reflecting because when they woke up this morning, the other side of their bed was cold. And for a long time, they were convinced, well, I'm waiting for Mr. Right. I'm going to more or less take a position that I'm fortifying myself so that I'm not willing to try. They all got to give. You know what? First word, Queens, that's called the Jezebel spirit. And if you don't know the story of Jezebel, I highly recommend that you research that because at the end of the day, she used her femininity to climb the economic ladder only to have a painful death. She was also the image of what the personification of what feminism projects. I don't need a man, but I need a man's assets. Even if it meant compromising your sexuality to obtain it. Nah, it ain't supposed to be that way. So at the end of the day, Queen, if you want your name to change, if you want your forever to be revealed, because some of y'all may not realize this. You know all the bullshit that you've been going on through, and you say, I can't find a man, I can't find a man. Ain't no men are not shit. I'm excusing my French because I'm talking to somebody because that's the only way that you will relate. You know why you're seeing that habitually? Why? One, because your circle has indoctrinated you to believe that. But look at them. Not a one of them are happy. And number two, none of them would do the work. They were afraid. to be themselves. And they were convinced that imitation means winning. Just as on this planet there are no two diamonds, there are no two yous. You have a smile that will light up a room, silence a crowd, if you embrace the diamond that you always were. But if you keep listening to what they say, you know what happens? You set yourself up to attract soul ties. What I mean by that is, first of all, it is medically proved. Every time a woman has sex with a man, his DNA is enshrined in her. It don't go away. His emotional energy is within her too. That's why you see so many women acting like men. Who am I talking to? And the main ones that are going to push back, they're going to say, oh, he is square. He don't know what he's talking about, but would give their all for one moment to be treasured, to have their emotionally fairy tale moment. They would give it up. They would give it up. But see, folks that are talking about relationships sidestep the one aspect. You will never have a relationship or understand the price of a relationship until you fortify the one that matters most. That's the one in the mirror looking back. How can you ask about what you bring to the table when you don't know what you bring to the table? And really, you shorten yourself, you shorten your stock every time you willfully use not your logic, but your physicality to negotiate to get ahead. You lose. And you wonder why so many people say, well, I want my knight in shining armor. That was how they used to say it, but what they used to really say was, what they're saying today is, I want that man with 6 figures, that's successful, got his shit together. I want him. Of course everybody want him. But on the flip side, he's looking at it from the perspective of, why would I want you when what sets you apart? Could I have a conversation with you? Do I inspire you? Do you inspire me? Because yes, it's true. For behind every successful man, for the most part, is a woman that supports his growth. Can he do it by himself? You're damn right he can. That's the price of being a man, because you are told through your development, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. That's why even economically, you're not going to see no man on welfare, EBT. No, because the government says as long as you have a mind, you have the ability to physically go out there and work. That's all you're getting, an opportunity. I love each and every one of y'all. But as long as you keep listening to the folks in the cheap seats, guess what happens? They making money off of you, hand off a foot, because number one, they're coming from a place of fear. How you gonna listen to somebody that hasn't done the work? And you could tell. You could fucking tell. Because you hear it in their tone. There's no peace in it. There's no peace in it. It doesn't come from a loving place. It comes from a place of agenda. But I will say this. I prayed for this a long time ago. There was 2 things I prayed for when I embraced my walk, my spiritual. I'm a spiritual man. Do not get it twisted. I am not religious. I am spiritual. He said, well, what's the difference, Gerald? The term religious means pattern. I can religiously drink a beer, but I don't. Spiritual means connect. What are you connected to? Because whatever you're connected to is a reflection of that bond. It is exemplified through your actions. The more pure you embrace it, the more defined it becomes. So you can't ask for somebody to love you if you don't know what love is. You gotta love yourself first. You gotta be comfortable in your skin to see your flaws. How can I give you demands on how to treat me if you don't know how to treat you? Well, I'll give you this leg if you do that. Come on. You're selling yourself short. King, if you don't hear anything that I said, just hear this. You were born to be a man. That road is up for discussion and constant focus on defining that. Not everybody can be a man. There's a lot of boys walking around here. A lot of boys. And it doesn't matter what your economic stake is. It don't. It don't. Because if you're not able to tap into peace of mind, you're socially broke too. That's why it's like, God, here we go to fuck again. She on this bullshit again. Why can't we get on the same page? Why? She ain't supposed to have been there. She traded. She said, well, I'm going to give you this look, and you're going to give me access to whatever you possess, because she don't have it. Nothing prospers when it's done deceptively. I love each and every one of you, and I'm telling you. See, the street side of the street in me wants to, wants to really go in, and I can't, because that's temperance. It takes a lot of strength. Plus, I don't embrace low energy. I just don't. I don't care how it tries to mask itself. I see it for what it is because I discern. But anyway, Queen, be prepared that one day you're going to have that wake up. Sometimes, unfortunately, I'm so sad. Look, one of the most disappointing things you can witness as a man is a woman who has lost her smile. Because if she's lost her smile, 9 times out of 10, she has lost hope in herself. Let that sink in. I don't care if you got a Coke bottle shape. If I can't dream with you, what we got to talk about? If you don't make me feel safe, why are you near me? No. But you let the people in the cheap seats keep telling you, and guess what happens? You get robbed of your time. You allow people that have deceptively sexually had access to you. Guess what they doing? Not only one more check in the scoreboard for them, because that's ego, but more importantly, they're robbing you of your time. And you know what's sad? The person that was destined to be with you, that's the person that's going to unlock the other side of your life that your emotions are connected to. Until you're willing to acknowledge that you deserve more, you need more, you're willing to commit to doing the work, You're holding yourself hostage. So once again, stop talking about you can't, you want a relationship, you can't find anybody. First of all, last thing I say, and I'm shutting this off. Queens, I said this in 2011. I'm gonna keep saying this. Stop looking for your mate. Did you hear me? Stop it. Stop. You're playing yourself. What you are supposed to do is prepare for him. The one. So when you keep saying, when your girlfriends keep telling you, I'm looking for Mr. Right, you know what you're doing? You're giving access to Mr. Right now. King, when you turn around and not doing what you need to do to exemplify what manhood is about, you're settling. Well, she got a fat ass, girl. Breasts, boy. Ooh. Boy, she can rock me to sleep. Wow. But your ass is on 10. You can't find trust in her if somebody put it in your back pocket. Why? Because she wasn't supposed to be there. And I ain't gonna say this. I can't ignore this. And everybody that does not look like you, they laughing. They laughing at you. Because they say they don't get it. And guess what happens? You have become their entertainment. Socially, you are the soap opera as the drama turns. Oh, you heard about Steve? Oh yeah, she was fine. Well, she stabbed him. She in jail. You heard about Tasha? Yeah. What about her? Oh, she up in the ICU because the guy that she was seeing beat her almost to half to death. Why you selling? Your stroke game don't give you, it doesn't equate to peace of mind. It don't. But if you have done the work and you know what intimacy is about, by being transparent with yourself, to be able to have a conversation even in conflict. First of all, you can't have a conversation with someone that does not understand the dialogue required to converse. Mm-mm. Fake it to make it ain't gonna work. That is why there's so many women today that equate pain with love. I remember one time, I will never forget this. This young woman told me she interpreted being loved as, if he don't go upside my head, he don't love me. If he don't disrespect me and call me a bitch, he must don't care. What? 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 Really? Okay. Two things came out of that. I knew she needed therapy, but more importantly, I also knew that she did not have a male influence in her life, like her dad or a cousin or uncle, somebody that gave a damn about her, that will pull her card and say, hey, this ain't what you want. And I say this on the flip side because if you got to put your hands on somebody, that ain't the environment you should have been with, begin with. They are depleting you of your greatest resource, and that is time. Plus, you notice the people that, when you hear about physical abuse going on, you notice there's no male in the female's life. Because if it was, the male would think twice before he would raise a fingernail. You're not supposed to settle. You're not. All right, let me shut up because I didn't ran my mouth too much. I hope you have a great weekend. Please be healthy. Do what's required to make sure that you see another day. But first, let it start by you loving you more. Once you decide to love yourself more, everything else will make sense. Peace.